This video is not sponsored. Today, we're testing this. This is an H4 LED bulb with dimensions similar to a standard halogen bulb, and this LED bulb is street legal. This video applies to all types of vehicles. I will be doing the test on a motorcycle, but the results also apply to cars and vans. The goal is to compare this bulb with the original halogen bulb from my motorcycle. Hi and welcome to EnjoyWheels. This bulb is the Philips H4 LED Ultinon Pro6000 HL Boost Gen 2. You can find boxes with a single bulb like this one for motorcycles, but you will also find boxes with a pair of bulbs for cars. This is an H4 bulb, which means it provides both low beam and high beam in the same housing. For this purpose, there are two pairs of LEDs on each side. The two LEDs with a small reflector are for the low beam. This reflector helps limit the height of the beam pattern. For the two high beam LEDs, there is no reflector, which means the beam is higher. Now, what is interesting about this bulb are its dimensions. I placed the original H4 halogen bulb from my motorcycle next to it for comparison. This is an Osram Bilex 64193. The height is almost exactly the same. There is only about 1 to 2 millimeters more at most. We can also see that the filaments in the LEDs are the same size and are located in the same position inside the housing. This should produce a similar beam pattern. We will check that later. On the base side, the LED bulb is also slightly taller, about 2 to 3 millimeters. All of this means that this LED bulb should be able to replace a halogen bulb without any clearance issues. This is completely different from LED bulbs with a large heatsink base like the one shown in this image. And with this type of bulb, you also need to add the H4 connector, which has to be installed next to it. This bulb is not cheap. I paid $70 for it, but I think the build quality is excellent. The body is entirely made of aluminum alloy, probably for cooling purposes. Here, there are openings for airflow, and there are also openings at the top. Inside, there is a small fan to circulate air and cool the LEDs. The pin layout is the same as on a standard H4 bulb. Here is the ground. This is the low beam, and this is the high beam. The first test I'm going to perform is a power consumption test. We're going to compare both bulbs. The halogen bulb is rated at 55 watts on low beam and 60 watts on high beam. The LED bulb is rated at 18 watts in both modes. To measure this, I'll measure the voltage across the bulb and the current flowing through it. By multiplying these two values, we'll get the electrical power consumption in watts. So I'm using a 12-volt motorcycle battery, but you'll get the same results with a car battery. I'm also connecting a battery charger so the voltage is around 14 volts, just like when the vehicle's engine is running. Next, I connect an ammeter in series. I'm using the 10 amp range because 60 watts divided by 12 volts equals 5 amps, so the 800 milliamp range is not sufficient. The multimeter is set to the 10 amp DC range. I connect the output of the ammeter. I'll start with the halogen bulb. I connect to the low beam terminal and connect the bulb's ground terminal to the battery's negative terminal. The bulb should light up. Ah, there's a bad connection. There we go. The current is about 4.5 amps. Next, I connect a voltmeter to measure the voltage across the bulb. I'm reading about 13.2 volts. So the electrical power consumption is P equals U times I. That's 13.2 volts times 4.5 amps, which equals 59.4 watts. That's a little higher than the rated 55 watts. Now let's switch to the halogen bulb's high beam. I have a current of 5.2 amps and a voltage of 13.1 volts. So, that gives a power consumption of 68.1 watts, which is also slightly higher than the advertised 60 watts. I will now move on to the LED low beam bulb. I have 14 volts and 1.1 amps, which gives 15.4 watts. This is much lower than the halogen bulb, and also lower than the advertised 18 watts. And now I'm moving on to the high beam. The same values again, 14 volts and 1.1 amps. So the power consumption is the same, 15.4 watts. The main thing to remember is that the LED bulb uses much less energy than its halogen counterpart. After measuring the electrical power consumption, we are now going to look at the bulb temperature while it is operating. So, I'm going to set my multimeter to thermometer mode. I'll connect a temperature sensor, which is a Type K thermocouple. I'll start with the halogen bulb on low beam. I touch the glass with the sensor, and I get approximately 350 degrees Celsius. I'll do the same measurement on high beam. I get more than 300 degrees Celsius. It is cooler, but maybe that is because there is no small reflector on the high beam. Now, I'll take the LED bulb, connect it to the low beam, and touch one of the two LEDs with the sensor. I get a maximum temperature of 220 degrees Celsius. I'll switch to high beam. Touch one of the other two LEDs, and I get around 220 degrees Celsius as well. So, the LED bulb is cooler than the halogen bulb, but most importantly, with the halogen bulb, the entire glass body gets hot, whereas with the LED bulb, only the LEDs themselves heat up. This means that you can install the LED bulb in place of the halogen bulb without risking thermal issues. Your headlight housing will not melt. Before moving on to the motorcycle test, I'll let you hear the sound of the fan. I removed the charger because it makes more noise than the bulb. Alright, now let's move on to the motorcycle tests. We're now in the back of a garage. We're going to compare the beam patterns of the two bulbs against the wall. To measure the light intensity, I'm going to use this lux meter. The sensor is the white part on top. The unit it measures is the lux. 1 lux is approximately the amount of light produced by a candle flame at a distance of 1 meter. If I turn off my studio light, we get about 1.3 lux. Now I'll turn it back on, and as you can see, the reading is much higher. The lux meter has a max button that I'm going to use. It records the highest value measured. Here's the test setup, currently illuminated by my studio light. The motorcycle is about 4 meters from the wall. I position the lux meter at the height where the light intensity is the highest. To take the measurements, I'm going to sit on the motorcycle to keep it perfectly upright, since it doesn't have a center stand. I'll start the engine so the bulb is supplied with its normal operating voltage. I'll turn off the light and start the motorcycle. This is the low beam with the original halogen bulb. I'm starting the engine. I'm getting on the motorcycle to hold it upright. Take a look at the beam pattern. On low beam, there's a sharp horizontal cutoff at the top. The lux meter is in max mode. Now I'm turning the handlebars so the lux meter records the highest reading. And I'll read the value on the meter. We get 530 lux on low beam with the halogen bulb. Now let's measure the high beam. I reset the max mode and switch to high beam. As you can see, the beam is much higher, which is perfectly normal. Once again, I'm turning the handlebars so the lux meter records the highest reading. And I read 502 lux. That's lower than on low beam, but the beam pattern is much larger. For your information, I'm filming my camera settings with my phone. I've locked my camera's ISO to 6400. That way, we'll be able to compare the images from both bulbs fairly. The same goes for the aperture, which is set to f10. If the camera adjusted the brightness automatically, we wouldn't be able to compare the images. Now let's replace the halogen bulb with the LED bulb. The LED bulb is now installed. I've put my camera back in exactly the same position, with the same f10 aperture and the same ISO 6400. I start the engine. And we're on low beam. The beam pattern looks good. Just like before, there's a sharp upper cutoff. I'll turn the lux meter back on since it shut itself off. I set it to max mode, and now I'll move the motorcycle's handlebars. Let's read the value. 1,392 lux. That's much higher than the 530 lux we measured earlier. Now let me show you both images for comparison. The halogen bulb is on the left, and the LED bulb is on the right. As you can see, the color is different. The LED bulb produces a much whiter light than the halogen bulb. The illuminated area is also wider with the LED bulb, so it gives the impression of better lighting. The difference is actually even more noticeable in real life than it appears in the images. Now let's test the LED bulb on high beam. I turn off max mode on the lux meter, switch to high beam, and enable max mode again. I get on the motorcycle and move the handlebars. Let's read the value. 1,732 lux. That's also much higher than the 502 lux measured with the halogen bulb. Let's compare the two images. Again, the LED beam is whiter and brighter. You can even see that the ceiling and the side walls are better illuminated, giving a greater overall sense of brightness. Once again, the difference is more noticeable in real life than it appears in the images. It's now time to wrap things up. So, is LED lighting better than halogen lighting? For today's comparison, my answer is yes. The LED bulb is almost exactly the same size as the halogen bulb. It runs cooler and uses much less electricity. On my motorcycle, one of the benefits is that it reduces the load on the battery charging system. The LED bulb produces a beam with virtually the same shape and size as the halogen bulb while delivering a whiter and brighter light. Its rated lifespan is 3,000 hours, compared to the 500 hours specified for the halogen bulb when used on high beam. As for road approval, the box includes a QR code that gives you access to a list of compatible vehicles, so be sure to verify compatibility before making any modifications. As for the drawbacks, the first one is the price, which is significantly higher than that of a halogen bulb. There's also another drawback for vehicles that monitor whether a bulb has burned out. Because the LED bulb draws much less current than a halogen bulb, some vehicles may incorrectly detect it as a burned out bulb even though it's working perfectly. In that case, you'll need to install an LED decoder. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, feel free to share it, leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, or subscribe to the channel. See you next time on EnjoyWheels.